Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make these Wirework bow rings. Now I have a selection of a few different colours, but this is what it looks like from the front. And I've used some crackled quartz in different colours and they're triangle shaped, and I've just put them together to form a bow shape. So if you want to learn how to make them, then stay tuned. And these are the things that you're going to need. You'll need a selection of a few pliers. I'm using a cutter and a round nose plier in this case, and you can always have a flat nose plier handy or something. And then you'll need your wire. I'm using two different gauges. This is silver plated copper wire I'm using, and the first one is a 1mm gauge, which equals an 18 gauge, and then the other one is a 0.4mm, which is a 26 gauge. And then you'll need a ring mandrel or something else round that you can use to get the right size and shape for your ring. And then obviously your two beads, triangle beads. I'm using some crackled quartz in a blue colour. So get your things together and then let's get started. So I started off with cutting off a length of my 1mm wire. And this is roughly about 50 centimetres. You're going to be cutting excess off at the end, but you also need to have enough to work with. So roughly about 50 centimetres of this. And then I've also cut a length ready of my 0.4mm wire. For this you'll need about 1.5 meters roughly, just to make sure you have enough to go around the whole band, because you don't want to run out. You want it to be as continuous as you can really. So about 1.5 meters of this. And then the first thing you want to do is get your 1mm wire out, the length that you cut off already. Make sure there's no kinks or bends in it too much. That is fairly nice and smooth. And then what you want to do with that is bend it around. So you're basically making a circle shape. You don't have to worry too much about it being a perfect circle, because you're going to be working with it and it's going to bend out of shape as you're working with it anyway. And that's why at the end we'll use the ring mandrel for, to shape it into place and also give it the right size. So you have it, the wire basically folded over so it forms one circle, and you want to keep going so the ends meet each other, and then also so they overlap. So basically what you have is something that looks roughly like this. You pretty much have two circles on top of each other, you could say. So what that means is now when you look from this angle, you have two wires next to each other, and this is what's going to form your band. So you now have this shape with your 1mm wire, the ends crossing over each other, and basically two loops around on top of each other. And then now you want to get your 0.4mm wire out that you've already cut off. And you want to start weaving now, but you want to leave a bit of a tail because you want to be able to use that at the end. So what you do is, this weave that I'm going to be doing is, you can basically call it a 3x3 weave. So what will happen is we're going to go around one wire 3 times, go over to the other side and then go around 3 times, go back to the other side, go around 3 times. And just keep going like that basically. So we'll start with one side, and I'm leaving a considerable tail. And then what you want to do is just start wrapping your wire around this side, just this one for now. Wrap it around 3 times. And as you're working with it, I suggest you can work towards one of the ends. It'll make it a lot easier than working, rather than working in the middle of it, because you can push your weave down as you go. So wrap it around once, then second time. Make sure when you're wrapping that your coils that you're making, that you push them down, they're nice and tight, and you push them down so they're right next to each other, because you want the weave to be as tight and even as you can get it, because that'll make it look nicer. And then the third time, and then push that one down. So you now have 3 wraps around this first wire. So you have your 3 wraps around this first wire. This is your working wire and this is your tail sticking out. So now that you have 3 wraps, what you want to do is move over to the other wire and do 3 wraps on there. So the way you do in this wire, you can do it in different ways. It doesn't have to be exactly like this. This is just how I'm happening to do it now. But in my case, my weaving wire is coming down through the middle in between the wires. So what I want to do is now take it to the other side, all of my wire. So at the beginning, it'll be the most tricky to work with because you're having quite a long length. And you're now on the other side with this, coming from above, going down through, and then out underneath the other wire. So what you want to do now is wrap around this wire 3 times, but you want to do it so your 2 1mm wires are tight. You can decide the distance between them yourself. It's just how I like it to be, have them pretty much as close as they can be. And what you can do, if you find that your ends get a bit in the way, you can always bend one of them a little bit away, because you can just bend it back into shape at the end. So you want to go around this wire on the other side that you just got over to. Go around that once, and then down in between the wires again. So do the same thing that you were doing on the other side, but you're just doing it on this side now. And then pull your wire back through, because this is the reason that you need to have your 0.4mm wire cut off the reel. You can't work with it on the reel because you're having to pull it through, because that's the design of this ring. So I pulled it around again, put it back down through the middle, and then pull it through again. And then make it nice and tight. Make sure your coils are really nice and close together. So we're now on the 3rd wrap. So again, down through the middle. Push it down. And because now we have 3 wraps on this side as well, we move back over to this side, the one we started with. And now because you have wraps on both sides, your wires are naturally held together, so you don't have to hold them to keep them together anymore. So you back down through the middle, coming from left side in my case, and you go underneath the wire on the other side and then wrap around that, and that's the 1st wrap, and then wrap around it again, push it down every time, and then one more time. So that's 3 wraps, like so. So you now have 2 times 3 wraps on this side and 1 3 wrap on the other side. So you take your wire back through, pull it through the middle, because you now want to move back to the other side. And you're now ready to make some more coils on this side. So again, I'm ready to make my 1st wrap on that wire. So down through the middle, push your wire down, and then push your wire through the middle of the ring basically, and then pull the rest of your wire through that. And then down through the middle in between the wires again. It's your 2nd wrap. Push it through again. Pull the rest through. And then this is the thing when you're working with this that you want to be a little bit careful of, about getting kinks in that. If you see a kink on the way, rather try and catch it before it turns into a proper kink, because it can it can ruin the look a bit, but even more important, it can actually weaken the wire. So try and catch it. And that's the 3rd wrap. So down through the middle to finish off the 3rd wrap, like so. And again, move back to the other side, wrap around this 3 times. And as you get more used to this, it'll go a lot quicker. But as you can see, I'm working more on one side, because as this weave will keep growing, all I'm going to do is just push it down and keep working up here, instead of working down here where it's going to be a lot more fiddly. Because yeah, you have to pull it through on one side, but then on here you can just wrap it around the end and not worry about pulling it through. And that's the third one. And you're now down through the middle, so you have to push it back through the ring to get on the other side. And that's all you do. Now this weave needs to be, there's no specific measurement, obviously it all depends on the size that you want your ring to be, but it's not going to cover the whole ring. Let's see if I can show you. You have the weave on your band, but then the weave needs to stop here, where you're then going to add in your beads. So just get to the length that you need your weave to be, your band to be, and then measure it by seeing how your beads are going to sit. So I've now weaved about this much, a pretty good length. It's roughly about 5 centimeters, because I'm then making sure that I have extra space to add the beads in, like I said. And all you do now is you need to make this circle smaller to make it more like a ring size. So all you do is just grab your end. You can grab both ends, but because this is my shorter one, I'm going to grab that first, and you just start pulling them. And you can pull from each side depending which one's longer and which one's shorter. So you just pull them, and your weave will end up in more like a round shape, in more of a ring size. So it's now reached that size. So what I'm going to do is get my ring mandrel out. Like I said, you can use one if you have it. If you don't have it, find something round shape, maybe like a marker pen. That's the size that you need your ring to be. And then I'm going to put this on and see the size that I want it to be. It's still a bit too big. I'm going to pull it a bit more. And just try and give it a bit of a shape. And test it again. Now that's more like the size that I want it to be. So I'm pretty happy with that size. And then this is the point then where you reach, when you've made this circle the size that you want your ring to be, you then check your weave. If it's still a bit short compared to what the beads are going to fit, you just make a little bit more. If it's too long, you can always take a little bit off. So I've now reached the point where I'm happy with the size of my weave, and it fits the size I want the ring to be. So it looks something like this, with your weave finished all the way around. And then what I do is just bend these down, your 1mm ends, just to get them out of the way for now. Just so they're roughly flat with the middle wire. And then I make sure to just push the weave down, so make sure it's nice and tight in case it's gone a bit loose while you've been working with it. So you now have your weave that ends on each side. So now what you do is, this tail is already coming out in between these two wires. Now I want the same thing to happen with this. So to make sure that that happens, because the natural way of it is that it goes down in between the wires, not up. So you just, your very last wrap, instead of wrapping it around just the one wire, wrap it around both, and then it'll come up through the middle. and then tighten that. And still push it right down to the weave. And it blends in so you won't notice it. So that's now coming up through the middle as well. Now it's time to put on your beads. So you get them out, and then you take one end of your 0.4mm wire, because that's where you put your beads onto. So I just take my longest length. It's just because this is plated wire, so the less wire I have to pull through the second time the better, the less chance of anything coming off. So my longest length of tail. So I find my hole, because this is a triangle shape and I want them to sit like this against each other. I need to just make sure that I thread them on correctly. So the first thing I do is I feed it on through the flat side where the hole is, like so. And then the other one, I find the hole, that's at the tip there, and I put that on. So you're basically putting them on opposite of each other. So they sit like this. And then all you do is just pull them down to your ring, and then you want to now work them into place. So this is why these 1mm wires, the ends of them, you want to make sure that they're kind of flat while you're doing this. So you now sit them on top of your ring, like so. And then what you want to do is grab your other tail and feed it through your beads the opposite way. And make sure to catch both the beads. And go all the way through. And then before you pull tight completely, make sure they sit nicely on one side. I hold my beads so they sit where I want them to. So I pulled one side tight, and I then hold them, and I pull the other side tight. And just do it slowly so you don't risk causing too much damage to the wire, like any kinks or taking off any other plating. So now your beads sit on like this. So your ring now looks something like this. Almost a bit of a monster, to be honest. And this is the back side. So you can see you've got all your weave running around your band, and then your two beads sitting on top in the shape of a bow. And you pull them tight so they now sit nicely. And then what you want to do is you cure your ends back down to the sides. So the beads definitely won't go anywhere, they sit nice and tight, and also to finish off your ends. So the wire, the 0.4mm wire that you have coming out on this side, you take the end of that and then feed it. You have the end of your weave finishing pretty much right where the bead is, and what you want to do now is, because this is a 3x3 weave, you have some nice little gaps in that in the actual weave. So you feed the end of your wire down through one of these gaps in the middle, like so, and pull it all the way through. Be careful when you're pulling it not to kink it too much, so just do it nice and slowly. So that wire is now coming down through the weave, out of the bead and then down through the weave. And now I just like to wrap this wire around your two 1mm wires that you use to make the band a couple of times. So kind of like just continue like you were doing the weave. So back around one side, back down through the middle. Just find where there's any little gaps and try and keep it looking nice and neat so it'll just blend in with your weave. And you can then wrap another time around here or take it around to the other side. So pull it through your ring band and then do a wrap on the other side. Like so. Pull it down nice and tight so it blends in with your weave. So you now have the point formula wire that was coming out of your bead. You feed it down through your weave, down through the middle, and then wrap it around the sides a couple of times to fasten it. Now what I do is I bring it back around the side, and then the two wires that you have coming out of the bead, what I do is I feed the end of my point formula wire that I'm using, feed it behind those two wires, and tighten it so again it'll blend in with your weave. And what I want to do now is basically wrap around these two wires up till I meet the bead. So I just go back around them wires again and go back behind them, take it out through again and pull it tight. So you're now starting to make loops around those two wires. Do it again. And I usually go from the bottom upwards towards the bead. Like so. And then the loops will just lay on top of each other. Try and make them sit so they sit nice and neat, so it just looks part of the design. Because it will be, but then it'll also help hold the whole thing in place and getting towards the top. Tighten it and push it down a bit if you need to. Back around again. And pull it through. I think we can just do one more time. And this is just kind of measuring by eye how you think it looks. There's no certain amount of loops that you do. Like so. Push it nice, tighten down. And then the last wrap, instead of feeding it behind, what I'm going to do is now I want to finish off this tail. So I want to cut it off very close to the other wraps, but just leave enough. I'll cut it off and just leave enough of a little bit of a tail that you can then take some flat nose pliers and then help push that around to tuck it in. Basically as if you were doing another wrap, but it's just because your end is so short you have to use a plier for it, just to help feed it through in behind the other wraps, so when you go across it, you can't feel any sharp edges and it won't snag on anything. So that's just how you finish that off. And then you then go to the other side and do exactly the same thing. Feed the end of your wire down through your weave. And pull it through. Like so. And then again you wrap it around your sides a few times. And then go back and behind these wires. Wrap around. And then finish off at the end just like you did. So do exactly the same thing that you've just done on this side. So I've now finished off both my 0.4mm wire tails on both sides. So the beads now sit in place like this, but they're still a bit wobbly, so the last finishing touch before the ring is done is to use these 1mm wires and then also obviously get rid of the excess. So to do that, I'll flip it around, see if you can see. This is what it looks like on the back side of it. So you have the wire running through the middle, that's part of your band, and then you have these, the tails of the 1mm wire on each side. So what you do is, I'll start with the one on this side, it's coming this way. So you just want to make sure if it's a little bit bent or kinked, just straighten it out with your fingers as much as you can. And then grab hold of your ring, and then because it's coming out on this side and this way through, what I do is I pull it up in the middle of my two beads, up the side of the middle, and then across. Like so. And then I go to the other side and I do the same thing. So I pull it up the side in the middle, like so. So if I show you from the side, you can see it's coming out there, but instead of just going straight across, I've now pulled it up in the middle of these beads. And then with this as well, you then push it over the middle. So basically your wires almost crossing over each other in the middle. And this is going to also help support your beads in place, give them extra security. And then you just want to make sure you're happy with everything, how it's placed. You can adjust your wires, your 1mm wires into place if you need to, like so. And then you need to cut them down, because obviously these lengths are much too long now, because this is the last step that's left to do now. Is you want to just make the little coils, the little spirals in both points to finish it off. But you need your wire to be quite a bit shorter than this. There's no particular length that this needs to be, it's just really whatever you think. It also depends how big you want that spiral to be. Now I don't want them to be too big because I want them just to be a little feature right at the tip, but not cover too much of the actual bead. So I cut it off, maybe it's about 1 or 2 centimeters I have. And I cut the same thing off on the other end, the other side. So they're roughly about the same length. And then you have your tails off there. And now what you need to do is get your round nose pliers out and then just coil the ends in. So the wire that's coming across from this side, across the middle and pointing out this way, I want to coil in this way. So back towards the beads basically. And I want this to be as nice and tight a coil as I can get it. Now what you'll see is the first loop I've done, it's not really that circular, it's more of like actually like a loop shape. What I like to do, something I find that really helps to get the center very round, is when you made the first loop, you get your wire cutters out and then just do like a millimeter or two of the end of the wire. Cut that off, so you basically cut off part of the loop, and then you keep coiling. As tight as you can get it. And then it'll work its way towards the point of your bead. And then you can always take a flat nose plier to help with the loop. You might need to flatten it down. Like so. And it can also help by actually getting it into the position that you want it to be. Like so. And then you obviously need to do the same thing with the other side. And this is why I recommend cutting both ends before you start making your spirals or your swirls, because you're more likely to get them the same length, and you want the loops to be as even as you can. Again, I made the first loop, cut off the very tip to get it as round as possible. Go back to my round nose pliers, keep looping, as tight as you can get it, down into position. And again, if you need to, grab your flat nose pliers to just flatten it down, and then push it into position. Like so. And then you can just see if anything needs readjusting, do it now. But then otherwise, that's basically your ring finished. So that's all there is to it. Fairly simple and easy, and pretty quick ring as well, once you get the hang of it. So I hope you enjoyed that, and thank you for watching.